Today, I consider myself extremely fortunate because we are going to be starting the teaching on Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara, one of the quintessential Buddhist commentaries that is existent in this planet, in this universe. Okay. So, you should consider yourselves very fortunate as well. I hope you do. And so, let's get started, okay? So usually before a teaching, the tradition is that some kind of preliminary prayers are recited, including the recitation of the Heart Sutra. So the Heart Sutra, actually, we just finished a whole series of lectures on that. So some of you will be very well equipped to explain the profound meaning of that. We're not going to get into the meaning, but just as a preliminary to the teaching, it is said that, the recitation of the Heart Sutra and the other prayers that we will recite, it helps to clear away the obstacles. So in general, in order to be able to understand the teachings, one needs a lot of merit, a lot of positive karma. And also one needs to purify our mind from the imprints of ignorance. And so that's one of the main reasons that these preliminary prayers are recited. So let's turn to page 76 in the gold prayer book. Were you all here for the sutra recitation at 5? No? Okay. So anyway, I usually mention this, but you see here, it's very important when we recite the sutra to actually do it verbally, with our mouths, out loud. Sometimes people, they'll just kind of read and not move their mouth. So you actually have to make a sound. And then think that in the space in front of us is the Buddha giving these teachings. And as we recite, the Buddha is giving the teaching along with us. And it's also very good to visualize all sentient beings in the space around us, also receiving teachings from Buddha. As we're going to get into in a little bit, in the Mahayana, or the Great Vehicle, there's a lot of these kind of, what they call endel, or like a dependent arising, right? So everything arises due to causes and conditions. And just now, as we're still kind of at the very beginning of our path, to just always be keeping in mind all sentient beings and thinking that they're here with us as we are, reciting and listening to the teachings, then, that sets up the kind of auspicious dependent arising that we can, one day, enlighten all sentient beings. Then, there's one mantra that we recite prior to the recitation of sutra. Om Dare Dare Ben Dare Soha. Okay? So let's recite that 7 times. Om Dare Dare Ben Dare Soha. 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 Om Dare Dare Ben Dare Bundare So, Om Dari Dari Bundare So, Om Dari Dari Bundare So. The Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Blessed day here at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on Master Vulture's mountain in North Korea, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aryabhakeshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aryabhakeshvara. How should any son of lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aryabhakeshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of a lineage or daughter of a lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not defiled, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness. There is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element and so on up to and including no mind element and no mental conscious element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on. Up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell on the perfection of wisdom, mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in 3 times also manifestly completely awaken to the unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Taita gata gata para gata para sam gata bodhisattva. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aryabhakeshvara, saying, well said, son of lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shantideva the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aryabhakeshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and gardalas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. So on the next page, the extensive dispelling of hindrances. I and all surrounding sentient beings go for refuge to the Buddha, we go for refuge to the Dharma, go for refuge to the Sangha. We prostrate to the Great Mother Prajnaparamita, who is gone beyond, surrounded by all the children and by the assemblies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. By my prostrations, depending on my prostrations, all of you, may these words of truth be actualized. In the past, the Devi King Indra dispelled the Maras by reflecting on the profound meaning of the wisdom gone beyond, and reciting profound words of daily recitation. In that same way, I also reflect on the profound meaning of the Great Mother Prajnaparamita, and recite the profound words of daily recitation. May all disease, spirit possession, bad conditions, all the negative directions, that which happened due to past karma and immediate conditions, may all this be dispelled, may become non-existent, may be pacified. I prostrate to the gathering of Dakinis in the 3 chakras who abide in the holy yoga of using space. By your powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation, look after practitioners like a mother or child. Akasamara, Shasadara, Samara, Te Akasamara. Akasamara, Sasadara, Samara, Pe Tayata Gate, Gate Paragate, Parasam Gate Bodhisattva. By the teachings of the three supreme jewels possessing the power of truth, may inner and outer hindrances be transformed, may they be dispelled, may they be pacified. Shintum Kuriye Soha. May all negative forces opposed to Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from problems and harmful conditions to the Dharma. May all enjoyments be in accord with the Dharma. And may there be happiness and perfect happiness here right now.
So, if you didn't understand some of those words, you can ask Anita.
Actually, please turn to page 73. Maybe we should have done this first. So here, the historical Buddha named Shakyamuni. We also, recite this praise to him, remembering his kindness in teaching the Dharma, which he only could do after a very long time, life after life, of training along the path, doing whatever was needed to attain full and complete enlightenment. So he did that all for us, so he could then, as they say, turn the wheel of Dharma to help liberate beings from suffering. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the Bhagavan, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path to sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. To those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devote homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with with bodies as many as all realms atoms, in all aspects with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly, this is the teaching of Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See all conditions and things as such. Through these merits, may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. So, my new friends, it's your first time coming here, right? But do you have any experience previously with Buddhist philosophy and or meditation?
Yeah, meditation I have not Buddhist.
I have a little idea about Buddhism, but I'm not very good with meditation. I get a lot distracted.
Okay. Sorry. It's just an allergy, so don't worry. I think
it's probably the flowers.
Could be. Or it could be something on the way here. Don't move the flowers, don't get up, just sit down. On my way here, there was also something being burnt.
Venerable Namjong, I have this, if you want, it's really bad for your teeth, but it will stop the running nose. If you really want, it's coughlin from Himalaya. So if you want it, it is here.
Okay, I'll take it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So usually, then before the teacher starts, after the group does the whole kind of praise to Buddha, as well as the recitation of the Heart Sutra, then the teacher, just himself, will recite a few verses. One of which is, well, the very famous stanza from Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamika. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the holy Dharma to overcome all wrong views. To the Gautama Buddha I prostrate. Again, remembering the kindness of Buddha for teaching the Dharma to us. And then, oftentimes the teachers will also recite one stanza from the so-called King of Prayers, the Samatha prayers. May I teach the Dharma in the language of the gods, in every language of spirits and nagas, of humans and of demons, and in the voice of every form of being. So, yeah. So we although there's only a few of us humans here, then it's also done that one would invite, the various unseen beings to come to this place to receive teachings. In fact, there's many stories in the past, within the Buddhist cosmology, there's all sorts of classes of beings and, spirits and I guess you could call them ghosts and so forth. And sometimes they cause trouble. And so the best thing to do that, to kind of pacify them, is to teach them about compassion. So anyway, I'm just sharing this with you. Most people don't talk about it, but just so you guys know, in the future when you teach this text, right, one would mentally, just invite all the beings in, this place to come, and tell their friends that, especially now, Shantideva's Bodhisattva Deeds is being taught here, right? It's so amazing. So, yeah. Okay. So I'm first going to just give a kind of general introduction to increase our enthusiasm for attending this teaching and seeing it through till the end. Yeah? So, actually I'm going to do it by means of some of the words of Shantideva himself, where he says, leisure and endowment are very hard to find, and since they accomplish what is meaningful for humanity, if I do not take advantage of them now, how will such a perfect opportunity come about again? So here, leisure and endowment, that phrase actually has a very specific meaning within the kind of Buddhist texts, where it's talking about a kind of life, a kind of rebirth that all of us have, where we have the leisure and opportunities to practice Dharma. So, as some of you will know, but there's actually 8 so-called leisures and 10 endowments. And without going through the whole list, the 8 leisures are just freedom. They're also translated as freedoms. So it's freedoms of having been reborn in certain states of existence that would afford us very little opportunity to practice Dharma. Yeah. And so you can imagine beings in the so-called lower realms of existence experience such suffering that they can't receive Dharma teachings. or like an animal who doesn't have the intelligence to engage with the teachings. And then the endowments, they're normally discussed as 10, 5 being kind of external to us, and 5 being internal to us, right? So the external kind of conditions would necessitate a Buddha appearing in the world and teaching, and those teachings existing in the world and people practicing and so forth. Whereas the internal ones have to do with us having, a sound body and mind, faith and interest in the teachings, and having basically what they call reversible karma. Means not having done such heinous negative actions in this life, like killing our father and mother, whereby our minds would be too disturbed to kind of fruitfully engage in the teachings. Okay? So, in general, as Shantideva is saying, this type of rebirth is very hard to find. It's like the stars aligning. Even if you think, you think in like mathematics, probability, right? Yeah? If you have a 6-sided die, yeah? You throw it, the chances of getting a 6 is 1 in 6, right? But the chances of getting 2 6s in a row is 1 over 36, right? So every factor that then needs to occur, it makes it exponentially more difficult, right? So then, just to think, all these factors having to come together, it's very, very, very rare. Or to put it another way, right? Unfortunately, we're in the major city of Bangalore, right? Huh? 10 million people live in Bangalore, right? There's very few cities in the world that have this many people. And, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sadhana, are you still here?
No.
So, right? Means, okay? There were 10 people, and now there's just 9. So that means all of you, just in Bangalore, you're 1 in a million. You guys understand? 1 in a million. Okay? Now, and that is here in India, right? Where you have freedom of religion, right? You have access to, the teachings here. In so many countries in the world, right? They've never even heard of Shantideva. There wouldn't be there might even be some places where there's laws against even coming together to, talk about the Buddhist, teachings, right? So many countries, so many places where, maybe they have freedom, but there's a language barrier, right? They don't speak a language that the teachings are translated into, right? So, when you think about this, mind-boggling, right? And then when you include the time element to it, right? So, the Buddha appeared over 2,500 years ago on Earth. Before that, there's no teachings. And eventually, it says that the teachings are in decline. At one point, the teachings will no longer exist in the world, right? So, when we then consider from, beginningless time, unbelievable. Unbelievably rare, just by the kind of numbers, right? So, not only is this type of rebirth very rare. What Shantideva is saying, since they accomplish what is meaningful for humanity, okay? So it's not just rare like, I don't know, like there can be rare things that aren't necessarily precious, right? Yeah? I don't know, I can't think of one offhand, right? But just because it's rare, it doesn't need to be valuable, right? But this type of rebirth, right? It's rare, and it accomplishes what is meaningful for humanity, right? It's very meaningful because with this body and mind that you all have, you, in this life, okay, before you pass away, you can attain the state of full and complete enlightenment. Just like the Buddha did. The same level of realization that he attained, you can attain that in this life. Let that sink in. You guys understand? Right? When we think about, you know, I don't know, like our goals, you know? Our goals. What are the goals we have, right? We want to get a book published, maybe, right? Huh? We want to, you know, buy a house, pay off our mortgage, right? I don't know. What do you guys want to do with your life, right? Get a promotion. Maybe, I don't know, we're in Bangalore, right? So maybe some of you are involved in a startup. You want to, you know, get your startup and then, you know, maybe have your IPO, sell out, right? Cash out. Huh? So, whatever you have, whatever goals, right? Compared to the, you know, attainment of enlightenment, right? Whereby, by the way, why do we need to get enlightened? You know, accomplishes what is meaningful for humanity. You know, so it's not just for ourselves, but all of humanity, and actually all living beings. Because once we are enlightened, we can do what the Buddha did, and teach and guide sentient beings to be free from suffering themselves. Right? More on that in a little bit. So, if we do not take advantage of them now, how will such a perfect opportunity come about again? Okay? So, when we think about it, yeah, actually, even having this rebirth that you have now, it too arose from causes and conditions, right? In general, to get a good rebirth, one needs to practice virtue, right? But not only a good rebirth, but, you know, like even a very rich, I don't know, Mexican drug lord, right? They have a good rebirth, right? They have a lot of money and power, right? Actually, they've created a lot of good karma in the past to be able to have that kind of position. But that is not enough, right? To have this particular rebirth where we meet and have interest in the teachings, we have needed to have what they call like pure prayers, right? Not just to be, oh man, be wealthy and powerful, you know, but may my life be most beneficial for others. You know? May I attain enlightenment as quickly as possible so I can liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. Right? These types of prayers, which maybe we find so rare to make these days, right? We made in the past. We practiced pure morality. We made these extensive prayers. And now, we're here. Do you guys understand? So now Shantideva is saying, if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, how will an opportunity, a perfect opportunity like this, come again? Right? So, wow. On the one hand, we, in reflecting on this one stanza, we should be sky high happy. You know? You understand? What we have is so precious, right? Like, I don't know. This analogy just came to my mind right now, right? But you think like, I don't know, someone super rich, right? Like Bill Gates, okay? Let's say he loses his wallet, okay? Okay, no problem, right? No problem, okay? Because, you know, he's so wealthy, even whatever might happen, you know, he loses his wallet, you know, no problem, okay? So, in the same kind of way, what we have with this precious human rebirth is so amazing that whatever might happen in our, you know, day-to-day life, you know, someone criticizes us, no problem, right? I don't know. Whatever the things that we complain about on a day-to-day basis, and you come up with your own list, right? I'll put it this way. You know, where you were reborn in your last life, and probably where you're going to be reborn in your next life, okay? Those people would kill to trade with you. You guys understand? You guys understand? So, when we really think about this, what a precious opportunity we have, there's no room for depression. There's no room for complaining, actually. Right? But, on the other hand, right? This shows what kind of bad practitioner I am. When I think about that too, I think, oh my gosh, I am totally wasting it. What am I doing wasting so much time? So there should be some kind of like, oh no, some kind of fear too, right? Is it? Do you guys have that, or just me? Yeah. You know? When we look in the texts, you know, the Buddha made an analogy where he said the amount of beings who go from, you know, rebirth in the higher realms to rebirth in the lower realms is like the number of dust particles, particles of dirt, in the whole world. Whereas the people who go from the lower rebirths to the higher rebirth is like the dust on the fingertip. Okay? So you guys get a sense of that proportion, right? It's like a rounding error, right? So then we look inside and we say, okay, well, you know, am I doing enough? Right? For me, anyway, sometimes I get very frightened. It was a good fear. It's a good fear, right? You know, even modern psychologists, they say, you know, with anxiety, there's actually a sweet spot of anxiety. Right? Right? For anything that we're trying to accomplish, you know, if we think like, oh, well, if I don't, do my job properly, I'll get fired or scolded or something like this, right? Then there's at least some little bit motivating factor, right? Yeah? So we need to find that sweet spot in our own practice, right? And so Shantideva is using this psychology with us, right? We have this precious opportunity, awesome. We can do so much with it, awesome. But if we don't make use of it, we're not going to get this kind of opportunity again. Therefore, what must we do? Take this opportunity and take advantage of it to its fullest. Okay? So how then do we take advantage of this human life? Right? As we saw in the preliminary prayers, there's the stanza, do not commit a single negative action, commit only perfect, virtuous actions, to thoroughly subdue one's own mind. This is the teaching of Buddha. Yes? Remember that? So that's a very pithy, one stanza encapsulation of the Buddha Dharma, right? So the Buddha the main thing he taught is, cause and effect, actually. If you boil it down, cause and effect. And, well, as I said in the beginning stanza, right, from Nagarjuna, enthused by great compassion, you taught the Holy Dharma to overcome all wrong views, to Gautam Buddha I prostrate, right? So the Buddha, motivated by compassion, the wish that others be free from suffering. So every one of his actions is kind of conjoined with that motivation, that others be free from suffering. But then, having great insight into the why sentient beings suffer. And sentient beings suffer, well, from negative actions that we do, and at a more fundamental level, because we have mistaken and distorted views of reality. So, on a temporary level, our negative actions then ripen as suffering experiences. And why do we commit these negative actions? We have even more fundamental distortions about the way our self and other phenomena exist. We'll get into that a bit later, right? So, seeing the root of our suffering as being these distorted views of reality, the Buddha then taught the Dharma, which are methods to uproot and overcome all these wrong views. Yeah? But on a more kind of worldly level, the wrong view that we're more operating with is kind of not fully appreciating the relationship between our own actions and our experiences. Right? Actually, every suffering experience that we have, the fundamental cause is, negative actions that we ourselves have committed, not necessarily in this life, but since beginningless time. When we befall some kind of suffering, we don't keep this in mind, and that's why we, always are looking outside for the blame. But fundamentally, if we don't want suffering experiences, we have to abandon the cause, which is negative actions. Therefore, do not commit a single negative action. then accumulate perfect, virtuous actions. Then the flip side of that, our happy experiences are due to the ripening of positive karmic imprints. Therefore, we need to do perfect virtue as much as we can. Then, since virtue and non-virtue is determined by the motivation with which we undertake actions, the motivation of, actions motivated by negative emotions like anger, jealousy, pride, and so forth, tend to kind of throw us into committing negative actions. When we're angry, we kill, When we have kind of greed, we steal. When we have attachment, we might cheat on our partners and so forth, right? So, if we want to take care of our karma, we need to take care of our mind, subduing our mind. So, this is the teaching of Buddha. And all the various, treatises, all the 108 volumes of sutras, all the various commentaries, are all, directly showing the way to subdue our minds. Okay. So that is the essence of practicing Dharma, and that is the way that we make our precious human rebirth meaningful, right? Because inasmuch as we're able to practice in this way, we can then, accomplish, as I mentioned before, we can accomplish a fully enlightened state of enlightenment in this life. If not, we can attain liberation from samsara. Okay? If not, we can assure ourselves of a string of good rebirths. And those three goals, either a good rebirth in our next life, the attainment of liberation from samsara, or the attainment of full enlightenment, are the kind of progressive goals of a Dharma practitioner. One of the other main commentarial traditions, called the Lamrim, or Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, arranges all the various Buddhist teachings in what they call the, three type of beings, or the three scopes, or the three capable beings, whereby, there are these progressive goals, right? Good rebirth, liberation, and enlightenment, and each of them have their own kind of practices that would lead to the attainment of that kind of goal. So all the Buddhist teachings, which are all methods to subdue the mind, then are arranged in Lamrim teachings in those kind of three types of persons, practices for those types of people, right? Or Purusha, yeah? Now, we're not going to go over the Lamrim. We've done that before, and we're going to do it again. But when you look in the Lamrim teachings, actually, and the famous one, most famous one, is by Lama Tsongkhapa. It's 3 volumes like this. But as Tsongkhapa arranges these teachings according to the 3 types of persons, then he actually quotes from this text, Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara, extensively. So actually within this text, all of the various practices needed to attain any one of those three goals is there. Yeah? So, when we're saying, leisure and opportunity are difficult to find, and since they enable us to accomplish what is beneficial for humanity, I'm talking about what is beneficial for humanity, attaining any one of those three goals, right? And so that can be done through the practice of this text. So please now, at the beginning, right, we always have to make sure that our motivation is clear and pure from the start, right? So think, just this one time I've attained this kind of perfect human rebirth, which is, so amazingly rare and so beneficial. And therefore, I must make best use of it. And in particular, in order that I may be able to free others who, just like me, don't wish to suffer and want to have happiness, in order that I may be able to free others from their suffering and lead them to a state of, highest happiness, stable, lasting, authentic happiness, yeah? I myself must develop my mind to its fullest extent. And therefore I'm going to engage in receiving these teachings and putting them into practice. Then also the lineage gurus, they often emphasize as well, that you should think right now, even if it's this first time you're receiving this teaching, you think, now, in the future, may I be able to also teach this text to others, and when I do that, may, my students, may my disciples attain all the realizations of all the profound and subtle meaning of this text. So, as a kind of bare minimum, right? You think that, and then think, any of the positive energy or the merits or the virtue that we create in our time together, studying this text, meditating on this text, reciting the text, memorizing the text, explaining the text, thinking about the text, meditating on the text, may that only become the cause for all sentient beings to quickly become enlightened, as quickly as possible. Okay? So every time you come, even before you leave your house, you think that way. And then you think, I must attain full enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Therefore, I must learn about all the practices that lead to the state of enlightenment. And therefore, I'm going to go to Jerusalem Ling to attend the lecture on Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Okay? So even before you leave your door, you have that motivation. Then every step you take toward the center, you're collecting unbelievable merit, unbelievable good karma. It's said in the Prajnaparamita Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, that even taking 7 steps toward a place where the Dharma is being taught, one collects more merit than filling the whole universe with the 7 types of jewels and making charity for many eons. You guys understand? So, And then, of course, not just when you are coming to lectures, but here's a hint. If you just come to the lectures, it's not enough. We're also, going to have to read this, read the commentaries, reflect on the meaning, so that we can understand it fully, right? So before you have your study sessions or meditation on this text, you also kind of develop that motivation. Then it becomes very, very, very meaningful. When we motivate with the thought, that I'm doing this so that I can become fully enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, then those actions will become the cause for us to become enlightened. Okay. I said all that to kind of bolster our enthusiasm for studying the text. How is it? Huh? Okay. So now, I'm going to start at least, I've been trying to start at least with the, the very traditional way of giving a Buddhist discourse. Okay. We recited the prayers to Shakyamuni Buddha, the Heart Sutra, then the teacher sets the motivation of the students. The teacher, considers his own motivation. And then, well, how we then actually engage in a discourse. There are two main ways, two traditions. Okay. So this I'm taking actually from the Lamrim by Lama Tsongkhapa. But the scholars of Nalanda, would explain teachings by means of the three purities. The purity of the speech of the master, the purity of the mind of the disciple, and the purity of the teaching that will be explained. Yeah. Then there was another tradition that came from Vikramala Monastery, also in northeast India. And it is said that it was important for scholars to begin with three topics: the greatness of the author of the teaching, the greatness of the teaching, and how one should explain and listen to the teaching. So I will follow that tradition. Okay? So the greatness of the teacher, or the author of the text, in this case, Shantideva. Okay? So, normally you would give a kind of extensive biography of the teacher. So I'll just do it in a kind of abbreviated way, based on what I can remember. Okay. So as is the case, actually I have some notes. But But as is the case with, you know, many of the ancient Nalanda University masters, they were born into a royal family. So Shantideva, actually, it is said he was born in the south of India. Yeah. And he was born in a place called Saurashtra. Do you know what that is?
Saurashtra is in Gujarat,
Ah!
Western India.
Saurashtra.
Oh man.
My mother's family comes from there.
Wikipedia is wrong.
Well, Western India some people consider almost south, and the North Indians consider
Yeah.
it's not really South India.
Okay. So anyway, Saurashtra. Okay? His father was King, oh man, Kalyanavaram. And his name was Shantivaram. When he was young, he naturally acted in the ways of a Bodhisattva. You guys know Bodhisattva? No. So anyway, you know, we have this, right? Guide to a Bodhisattva's way of life, right? We're going to talk about the title, but, you know, Bodhi, right? Enlightenment. Sattva is a being. So, a Bodhisattva is a being who set as his or her kind of goal in life, one-pointedly focused on the attainment of full enlightenment so they can be of utmost benefit for sentient beings. So although they're not fully enlightened yet, they have the kind of uncontrived natural compassion extending to all sentient beings. So here in the biography, when it says that he acted like a bodhisattva, it means that he was naturally compassionate. Sorry. Okay. He had great faith in the Mahayana teachings, great respect for his teachers, and was diligent in his studies. He was always helpful to the king's ministers and to subjects. He was very compassionate to the poor, the sick, and the lowly, giving them aid and protection. He also became very learned and skilled in the arts and sciences. During his youth, he met a wandering yogi who gave him teachings on the Tikshana Manjushri Sadhana. And through this practice, he established a strong connection with the Bodhisattva Manjushri and attained a high level of realization. When Shantideva's father passed away, the ministers of the kingdom wanted to make Shantideva the next king, and they prepared a great throne for his enthronement ceremony. But the night before he was to be enthroned, Shantideva had a dream in which he saw Manjushri sitting on his throne. And Manjushri said, "My son, this is my seat, and I am your teacher. How can we two sit on the same seat?" Shantideva interpreted this dream as an indication from Manjushri that it is of no use to become king. So he fled the kingdom, leaving everything behind. So you see the kind of parallel with the historical Buddha's own life story, right? And also Atisha. Many great masters, they're born into a royal family, and then seeing the kind of futility of the worldly life, they leave. He went to the monastic university of Nalanda, where he became a monk under Jayadeva, who is the head of the 500 Panditas of Nalanda. It was at that time he was given the name Shantideva. At Nalanda, Shantideva studied all the teachings of the three Pitakas and meditated on the meaning. But he studied and practiced on his own in private with himself, focusing on the meaning of the teachings and the practice. He secretly composed 2 treatises that condense the meanings of the pitakas, or the scriptural baskets. He composed the Compendium of Trainings and the Compendium of Sutras. And so, although Shantideva had these great qualities of realization and renunciation, he remained in Nalanda without showing anything outwardly. Okay? So, to the other students, he appeared to be very lazy, right? He kept all his qualities hidden. And so, they came to call him Bushuku. Bu comes from Butka, which means eating. Shu comes from, or Su, I guess. Su comes from Susta, which means sleeping. And Ku comes from Kuchiwa, which means walking. So, actually in Tibetan they say he was known as the one who did 3 activities: eating, sleeping, and going to the toilet. Okay? Because outwardly, you know, he didn't make a big display of his inner qualities. So the other monks gave him that nickname. Okay? But you see, he wasn't doing anything wrong, he just was kind of lazy, right? So the other monks, they wanted to kick him out of Nalanda. But he didn't do a kind of, explicit transgression of the rules, right? It's not like he, killed or stole or did anything. He just would sleep and lounge around, right? So the monks then didn't have a basis to expel him. Are you okay? I'm sorry. Okay? Alright. So they then devised a plan. They thought, okay, we'll make a new rule whereby all the monks have to give a teaching. Right? And since he doesn't know anything, he'll become so embarrassed by having to give a teaching in front of everyone that from his own accord, he'll quit and then leave the monastery. Okay? So, then as the story goes, the day came, and he started to recite the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. And then at a certain point, he started levitating in the air. And at a certain point, he disappeared in the chapter on emptiness. He disappeared, and only his words, his voice could be heard. And then he went back. Well, he went to South India. So, oops. Yeah. So at the time when he gave the teaching, then, of course, everyone was amazingly impressed. But then, some of the Panditas who had good memory then kind of wrote down notes. So maybe it was Anita in one of her past lives, diligently writing down notes. Okay? But then there were 2 opinions on what had been said. So then the Panditas from Kashmir, they thought the text had 9 chapters and 700 stanzas, but a group of Panditas from central India thought it had 10 chapters and 1,000 stanzas. In addition, as you'll see, in this text, Shantideva refers to his compendium of sutras and the compendium of trainings, right? Yeah, you guys know that? Huh? Yes? Hello?
Shisha Samuchaya.
No. Do you know the part in the text where he says, this has been explained in the compendium of trainings? Okay. Anyway, he says that. And so then the monks were also like, what does he mean by the compendium of trainings? Because those were the other 2 texts that he had composed, but this was the first teaching he gave in public, right? Okay? So they searched for Shantideva all over India. And then they found him at the stupa of Sri Dakshina. Sri Dakshina? Which is in South India. You know where that is? Me neither. So, then the Nalanda monks, they found him, and then they invited Shantideva to come back to Nalanda and teach. But he refused and said, well, I like it in the south here. Good masala dosas. But he then said, no, the text does have 10 chapters and 1,000 stanzas, so follow that one. And then he told them where to find his other books, the Compendium of Trainings and the Compendium of Sutras, which he had written on palm leaves and hid them under a straw roof in his room. And then he also just gave a reading transmission and explanation of those 2 texts. Okay. So actually the Compendium of Trainings is the longest one. The Compendium of Sutra is shorter. And then this Bodhisattva Charyavatara is the middle length one. So we now translate it as, a guide to a bodhisattva's way of life, right? In Tibetan, the short name is Chuju. Chuju. Ch is like conduct, right? And juk is like, umala jukpa, right? Avatara. It can mean to enter, to engage, or it can also mean to supplement. Okay? So, in general, the content of this text is the guide to a bodhisattva's way of life. Bodhisattva, one who is not yet enlightened, but has kind of fully dedicated themselves to the attainment of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. That's their motivation, that's their goal in life. But how do they achieve that goal? They have to engage in the practices that lead to enlightenment. So this text is the guide for how a bodhisattva should conduct herself, how a bodhisattva should train. Okay? So anyway, sorry, I've finished the greatness of the author. Greatness of the author. Greatness of the teaching, right? I was just starting on. You see, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, right? He says, whatever he has learned about bodhicitta, bodhicitta is that mind that aspires, enthused by great compassion, and then aspires to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So, whatever His Holiness knows about bodhicitta, he says he got from this text. understand? So that actually should be on the back cover. You know, they have like quotations. That would be like the ultimate stamp of approval, right? Right? So within it, yeah, as I mentioned before, all the practices needed for someone to attain enlightenment is contained in this text. You understand? Not just, I don't know, maybe some of you, not you guys of course, but sometimes people, you know, what brings them to the Dharma Center? What brings them to come here? Some people
Stress.
are stressed out during the week. Oh, now it's the weekend. Okay. Let me just meditate and have some stress relief so I can go back to Monday, you know, kind of refreshed. My battery is recharged. Yeah? Some people come here like that. Yeah? It's okay. But this text is showing us how to become Buddha. So, it's really amazing. How the text is then structured, you know. At one point, well, at the beginning there's the kind of, talks about the benefit of bodhicitta, the benefits of bodhicitta, the awakening mind. Then it goes to a very beautiful, what they call the 7 limb prayer, which are, well, prostrations, offering, confession of downfalls, rejoicing in merit, requesting that the Buddhas remain, and requesting that they teach, and then dedicating the merit to full enlightenment, right? So those 7 practices are, in brief, the ways to purify the mind and collect extensive merit that will lead to enlightenment. After that is then done, there's again a very beautiful ceremony which we take Bodhisattva vows, right? Where we vow in front of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that, you know, just as all the Buddhas of the past have, you know, first generated the mind of bodhicitta and then successively engaged in the practice, so I too, you know, promise to generate the mind of bodhicitta and then successively train in the practices. Right? So it's a very inspiring kind of ceremony, or, you know, reaffirmation of our commitment to the path. And so, some of you, well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, some of you do that on a daily basis. Some of you do that 6 times a day, right? Some of you do that even more, right? I'm actually not, I usually wear specs, I'm not wearing them today. So, here's one case where ignorance is bliss. I asked a question, and I didn't really see the expressions on people's faces. Okay. So, then, after one, you know, the taking of the Bodhisattva vows, right? Then it goes into detail about, then after having taken the vows, how then to really train. So then there's, you know, chapters on conscientiousness and guarding alertness, which is basically now, you know, after that we've made this commitment in front of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to kind of, you know, okay, I'm going to, you know, constantly watch my mind, how to do that, how to make sure that we're always engaging in virtue. And then after that, it goes through the so-called 6 paramitas, or the 6 perfections, right? Generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, meditation, and wisdom. Right? So these, well, we can put it the other way. All of the various practices of the bodhisattvas that lead to enlightenment can be categorized into one of those 6 perfections. Those are the main sort of practices that bodhisattvas then engage in. Okay? So then it discusses in detail how to engage in those 6 practices, 6 perfections. And then at the end, the 10th chapter, dedication chapter, which is an extremely beautiful, poetic, and inspiring way to dedicate. Dedicate means, whenever we practice and collect merit, then it's like we've have some gold, right? And then that gold, depending on how we bend or whatever, shape it, we can make various ornaments, right? So similarly, as I mentioned in the beginning, right? Even the drug cartel lord has extensive merit, but that merit wasn't conjoined with pure dedications, right? So this dedication prayer then is one way we can ensure that our positive merit, our positive karma, ripens in a way that is most beneficial for ourselves and others. We don't want to be reborn as drug cartel lords, even if they're, multimillionaires, right? Billionaires, even. Right? Okay. So, can we press pause? Because